Okay, this is a reaction video. This is from Nutty History: Why You Wouldn't Survive Life in the Wild West. Now, I'm not a big Western fan. I think the first Western movie I ever saw in my life was Pale Rider with Clint Eastwood back in 1985. Um, but I'm pretty sure from some of the scenes that I've ever seen from movies growing up. I know they made a lot of westerns in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Uh, it didn't look anything like that. The language was probably a lot saltier, and probably they were a lot more grimy or dirty. I think they did a TV show, Deadwood, on HBO, which is probably more authentic than anything else you'd ever see. But I'm kind of curious as why you wouldn't survive life in the Wild West.
The American Wild West has long been romanticized through film and popular culture. Cowboys, outlaws, and lawmen pushing through swinging saloon doors, quick-draw duels, vast landscapes.
That doesn't make any sense. That never made sense. A quick draw where two guys would stand there facing each other and wait to see who's the fastest draw. Why would you even put yourself in that situation? I wouldn't even, you know, call me a coward, call me whatever you will, but as we're walking out to do our quick draw, I'm going to shoot him in the back right then and there and not even deal with any of that stuff. But that's me.
Promise of a better life. All of this has been framed as the epitome of American individualism and adventure, as the experiences that made Americans and made America great. But it really wasn't so great. A lot of
Call me a coward or anything like that, but you know what? This is my face. It's not the prettiest in the world, but it's mine, and I like it, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it alive and all. But I didn't live in the Wild West, so I don't have to worry about it. I have no blood on my hand.
horrible things went on in the Wild West, things that were far from romantic. Welcome back to Nutty History. Today, we're exploring why you wouldn't survive life in the Wild West. Viewer discretion is advised for this video, as some of this video may be offensive or disturbing. We, the makers of this video, in no way support or condone the actions of the subjects featured.
Likewise, same for me. You know, I did say I would shoot somebody in the back, but that's. I'm not. I don't live in the Wild West.
Just getting out west was a dangerous and deadly journey. The main route out there for families traveling in covered wagons was the Oregon Trail, the Mormon Pioneer Trail, and the California Trail. This network of trails has been called the nation's longest graveyard. Between the 1840s and 1860s, some 400,000 people made the trek out west. About 1 in 10 survived. It's estimated that along the 2,000 miles of trail, 10 to 15 people bit the dust every mile. And they succumbed to all kinds of horrible things. The number one cause of death was disease. There was often very little food and a lack of clean drinking.
Yeah, I would think disease would probably be the biggest thing that would hurt you. Probably lack of water and food would also be another thing because you have to. Yeah, I mean, it's not like you just will go to the local store and buy provisions. It doesn't work like that. You probably would have to be on the road, be out on for quite a while, and towns would probably or settlements would probably pop up that you could probably stop in and do some of that. For the most part, you'd probably would be out on your own for quite a while, or the group would be out on their own for quite a while.
Water. Unsanitary conditions created petri dishes for disease. Cholera was the number one culprit. It tore through the wagons of the Wild West pioneers. Caused by bacteria in unclean water, some people would contract the disease of the morning and be dead by noon, the same day. Firearm wounds were another major cause of casualties along the trail, but not in the way you might think. A lot of the pioneers were scared of Native Americans, so they brought entire arsenals of weapons along with them on their journey. However, for the most part, the Native Americans were pretty peaceful. Yeah, there were some hostile tribes like the Apache and Cheyenne who were just trying to defend their home, but for the most part, the natives actually helped immigrants traveling westward. They would often give them supplies and help them cross rivers. Firearm wounds were often inflicted by the pioneers on themselves. Cases of misfiring, accidental pop-offs, and hunting accidents were by far the most common types of accidental deaths.
Now, I wasn't alive when they played. I never played cowboys and Indians like they did back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. But they were the Indians or the Native Americans were portrayed as the bad guys. But and yeah, there were hostile Indian tribes. I know that. But for the most part, they were just defending their land. They were there first. But I went to in Montana to Little Bighorn, which is where Custer's last stand. and where Custer tried to, well, let's put it this way, they put red headstones, markers, where the Native Americans died, and white where the soldiers of the United States died. And there were a heck of a lot more white headstones than there were markers than there were red ones. And it was, I mean, look, it was what it was, but it certainly didn't look, when you know the story, it didn't sound like something that you'd have wanted to do.
And if pioneers didn't immediately succumb to their wounds, they were very likely to die due to infection shortly afterwards. One of the most famous Wild West towns during the 1800s was Dodge City, Kansas. It was so notorious for crime and lawlessness that the name became a common English idiom. Getting out of Dodge, meaning getting away from a bad situation, was inspired by the desire of many to get out of Dodge City,
and a lot of people still use that. Gotta get out of Dodge,
Kansas, because it was too dangerous. The city took on kind of a mythical air over the years. But how much is actually true and how much is overhyped hearsay? Dodge City was founded in 1872.
And where Kansas City is in the middle of the United States, it wouldn't surprise me if that was probably a gateway. If you were coming east and heading west, that you would probably stop in Dodge for provisions and things like that. It wouldn't surprise me.
After serving as a fort since 1865, playing a role in several battles between Native Americans and the encroaching colonizers. The town was first established as a major buffalo trading post. By 1876, over 1.5 million buffalo hides had passed through the city. However, nearly all the buffalo on the American plains had been wiped out by the end of the 1870s, and Dodge City transitioned into a cattle town as cowboys would ride through with their hoofed wares. In the first year after Dodge City was founded, there was no sheriff or law enforcement of any kind. The town was quickly connected to the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, and development exploded, leading to all kinds of people flocking to the town, some of them admittedly not so savory in character. As a result, there were a series of duels and deaths that first year that quickly gave Dodge City a bad reputation. Gunslingers would often die with their boots on, and the first cemetery in the town was named Boot Hill Cemetery. The media picked up on the initial lawlessness of Dodge City, and headlines from around the country began sensationalizing the violence. And Dodge City was soon a mythologized symbol of the lawless Wild West, justified or not. There was one joke that began...
And really, who would want to live there in a place like that with lawlessness where you get shot and go to the cemetery? I mean, when you think about it, it may make good for good entertainment, but you want to live in a place where you get shot?
Circulating, it went like this. A gentleman wishing to go from Wichita to Dodge City applied to a friend for a letter of introduction. He was handed a double-barrel shotgun and a Colt revolver. Eventually, the legendary lawman Wyatt Earp was brought in to restore order. Firearms were banned in certain parts of town, and the newly built jails were soon full. Dodge City became a relatively organized town, but its reputation had already been cemented by the press, and later, Hollywood.
Well, that's not cool.
Saloons are a well-known staple of the Wild West. Cowboys, outlaws, prospectors, you name it. Anyone trying to make it out west would come through those swinging doors to throw back some drinks and maybe get into a drunken bar fight or two. Western saloons were inspired by Mexican cantinas south of the border. One of the first popped up in Wyoming in 1822, and they quickly spread to frontier towns throughout the Wild West. Saloons became the most popular attractions in town, and they were...
Yeah, if you see any Western movie, one of the staples of a Western movie is at the saloon, where you see the bartender dressed pretty much not too dissimilar from there, serving beer or whatever beverage that the person wants. But yeah, saloons were huge, and especially if you watch Westerns from old Hollywood. Granted, I never watched a lot of Westerns, but you do see scenes from Western movies, and a lot of them have saloons.
Really popular. Some towns had one saloon for every couple of hundred people. In 1883, Livingston, Montana had a population of just 3,000, but they had 33 saloons. Leavenworth, Kansas had a population of 16,500, and they had 150 saloons. Due to a lack of resources and erratic supply chains, saloon owners often had to get creative and stretch out their alcohol supplies.
And I'm guessing when he says poison, I don't think he poisons you intentionally. He's just looking for alcohol, and they find something that's not good and put it in your drink. Next thing you know, you're at the doctor's office or you're dead.
Many did this by watering down their bottles of booze with such unsavory and deadly ingredients like turpentine, formaldehyde, ammonia, gunpowder, and tobacco juice. Ugh, gross. The gold rush began in California in 1849. Soon, everyone and their uncle was looking to hit it big. People flooded into the West, hoping to make their fortunes in gold or silver or copper or zinc. The non-native population of California exploded from around 800 to 300,000 in less than 10 years. Mines began popping up all over the place.
That is an awful lot of people.
And they were far from safe. The negative health effects of inhaling stone dust all day have been well documented. Tracheal cancer, lung cancer, tuberculosis, and other respiratory problems.
People would get in and head out there.
Took out thousands.
Rich and not many people were successful, but some were. But yeah, that's where they just, there's gold out here, so they all rush on out there. 300,000 people, and this isn't like boarding an airplane or driving your car. Taking that trek out there to the West Coast, traveling 2,000 miles on foot or on horseback.
Of miners. More immediate threats included mine fires, collapses, dynamite accidents, and just about any other safety hazard you could think of in mining shafts that would certainly not have passed any of the most lenient health and safety inspections. Now, to make matters worse,
not that they ever had health and safety inspections. They were there, they didn't have any of that yet.
Worse, once again, the native population was destroyed by the gold rush. California's indigenous population numbered some 300,000 before the rush of 1848. 20 years later, one-third of them had perished, either because of mining and disease, or else attacked by angry, bigoted miners. The world's oldest profession was certainly widely practiced in the Wild West.
And if you watch those movies from the 40s and 50s, again, I didn't watch those, but I've seen scenes from them. The women they didn't have a lot of the prostitutes that were actually prevalent out there during this time period. But it is rather interesting.
Ladies of the night worked at the many brothels attached to the many saloons in the many frontier towns that were popping up during the 1800s. Life for these ladies was harsh, as you could imagine. Many were very young and very poor. Lots were immigrants trying to eke out a living in any way they could. To make matters worse, 50 to 90% of these women in the Wild West had some sort of venereal disease. Talk about riding dirty. Workers did take precautions against unwanted diseases and pregnancies, but those precautions were often toxic. It was common to use solutions with chemical ingredients like mercury or carbolic acid or cyanide to prevent disease and pregnancy. But the dangers of using these toxic chemicals would often be more dangerous than the diseases they were thought to prevent.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about this is this land isn't your land. I don't know what this is about, but the Indians, the Native Americans, they were there first. And, there was something called manifest destiny that was prevalent in the 1800s. And it was God's will that the settlers colonized from sea to sea, from the Pacific, Atlantic to the Pacific. It was called manifest destiny. But yeah, they went and took land that wasn't theirs and just moved the native population out. You can't deny it.
Now, we can't talk about the horrors of the Wild West without mentioning the annihilation of the Native Americans. The numbers are unclear, but estimates of the indigenous population throughout North America before the Europeans came ranged from 5 to 15 million, to even as high as 60 million. By 1900, less than 300,000 remained. And the Native Americans were not simply small tribes.
I mentioned Little Bighorn earlier, and I'm not a history expert by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a deal in place that the native population would have that area of Montana, and that the United States would had no interest in it. Well, gold was found there, and that all bets were off. And you have to think, I had to think, because they have, they're building a Crazy Horse Memorial. In fact, I think, give me a second here. This thing right here, Crazy Horse Memorial, we went to the Crazy Horse Memorial. This is what it looks like right now, but they're still fixing it, but or making it. But you had to think that even though they won at Little Bighorn, even though that was Custer's last stand, a lot of American soldiers were killed there, that they had to know that their time was up. That they had to know that they may have won the battle, but they were going to lose the war. And so, yeah, you can't deny, no matter how you feel about the United States, you can't deny that that land belonged to them. It was theirs. They were there first. They settled it. And the United States came and took it. Now, I take no responsibility because I wasn't alive there. Okay, when I was born in 1969 out in Long Beach, California. That issue was long since settled. But that's what happened.
Wandering the countryside like many of us were taught in history class. Advanced civilizations like the Mississippians built large, complex cities, complete with large pyramid-like mounds, many of which were astronomically aligned. But by the 1800s, these civilizations were gone. One of the main culprits was disease. European diseases like smallpox wreaked havoc on indigenous populations. Some say the problem started when Spanish explorers pushed towards the Mississippi and then left, leaving behind exotic diseases that the natives had no immunity to. Those who survived were met with fighting brought by the pioneers. The Seminole conflicts and the Battle of 1812 led to yet more fatalities. Starting in the mid-17th century, boarding schools were set up across the country with the motto, "In the Indian, save the man." The goal was to civilize the savages. In one of the darkest examples of colonial American history, hundreds of thousands of Native Americans were taken from their homes between the 17th and early 20th centuries and re-educated in the white European model. The Wild West was, well, wild. It was dangerous. Life there was uncertain and perilous. It was far from the romantic cowboy Hollywood image that was cultivated in the 1900s. Rugged American individualism, manifest destiny, adventure, these ideas were manufactured. What the Wild West really was a chaotic colonial expansion at the expense of an already dying indigenous population. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to...
Yeah, please click like, share, and subscribe for Nutty History as well as myself. But it's true. I mean, you can't deny it, no matter what you think, no matter what your beliefs are. They were there first. And when I was at Little Bighorn, again, when you drive through that area or you look around that area, this is area that was populated, that was settled by, they owned it. Okay, and the white population or the European population just came and moved them on out, and now, you still have reservations, but it's all changed. And I'm not defending it, and I'm not denying it. I'm just saying that's what happened. It's just a part of American history. And it's our duty as Americans, it's my duty as an American to reflect that whenever I see something like this. But hey, please click like, share, and subscribe for Nutty History, as well as for me. And thanks for watching. Have a good day.